Hi, everyone. It's super exciting to be here. I hope you all are enjoying an amazing and beautiful week at Cannes. I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm going to bring our amazing panelists up on the stage. Douglas Eck, who is the head of research at Google DeepMind, and Nick Keleverov, who is the founder of Foreign Native.
Thank you.
And we'll do introductions in just a minute. My name is Adrienne Lahens, and I've been in the creator space for the last 15 or so years at this point. Most recently, I was at TikTok, where I was building a number of creator products and also generative AI solutions for advertisers. And now I'm the founder of Infinite Studios. We are an AI platform that helps brands to safely develop and scale high-impact content with a variety of trusted AI-native human creators. So that's a little bit about me. And Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on these days?
Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Keleverov. I'm Chief Creative at Native Foreign. We started out actually as a kind of more traditional brand storytelling agency, and we've really delved into the AI tools. We have a little show reel that we can play in a moment that just kind of gives you a quick 60-second TLDR of who we are. But I'm very excited about how storytelling can help, technology can help storytelling, and that's what we're talking about here today.
And Douglas?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Doug. I lead our work at Google DeepMind in media generation. So image generation, which is our Imagine platform, video generation, Veo, recently Veo 3. I'm trying to train myself to say Veo. We sort of internally called it Veo and back and forth, and I think we're settling on Veo. So every time I say Veo, I sort of like the swear jar for your kids. I put $1 in. And then Lyria for music. I've been a researcher. I've been working on this in this area of generative for longer than I care to really remember. But I did my dissertation in 2000 and had 6 years of grad school before that. So I think that counts as about 30 years. And I can say with confidence that for 27 and a half of those years, nothing worked. Right? So neural networks did some things, but they certainly didn't generate really cool videos that make you laugh or make you cry. And we've really seen this explosion of quality happen in the last 2 or 3 years, thanks to a bunch of aspects. And I'm just really excited to be here to have a chance to talk about what it means to bring this into the world, both at the consumer level and at the professional level. So professionals like you, those of you in the creative industry and the ads industry, professionals in the film industry as well. Maybe some of you are here, film and TV. And I brought my laptop with little things to show, but really I'm hoping it's a conversation with questions and a chance to talk a little bit about the technologies that we're building and what works, and more interestingly, what doesn't, what's broken, what needs to be fixed, how do we make things cooler.
Yeah, Doug, that's such a great point. You've been in the space for such a long time. How has the industry evolved over these years? And in the early days, did you have a clear vision of what is now possible today? 20 years ago, were you thinking that, today we'd be on stage talking about how some of the most incredible and impactful content is actually being featured on broadcast?
I mean, to be honest, yes. I mean, there's not much modesty in that, but there was a generation of researchers that I'm part of, and I'm by far, there are so many researchers more talented than me. There are folks that have really moved the field further. But there was a group that started in around 2002, 2003, looking at neural networks. And at the time, neural networks were not considered state-of-the-art for anything. They were not good at classifying the difference between a picture of a leaf of grass and a tree. They weren't good at predicting the stock market. They weren't good at anything. And there were all sorts of technical reasons why they shouldn't have worked. But there was this idea that many of us had that taking little computational units called neurons and stacking them up and then letting them learn how to solve problems, that was the future. And at the time, the state of the art was, no, we'll write out recipes. If I want to control a robot arm, I'm not going to learn it from examples. I'm going to write the recipe for how to control a robot arm. That's good old-fashioned symbolic AI. And there are a few of us that just believe, no, it can't work that way. The world is too complicated. You need just to show these models the world and let them learn from the world. And 20 years later or 25 years later, I think the proof is here that large neural networks can do a lot of really cool things. And the part that I focused on was the generative part. So I was trying to generate blues improv in MIDI with recurrent neural networks in 2000, which is very, very, very OG. OG to the point of being like 10 years before its time. So that part we saw. What we didn't see was the societal impact. We didn't see how quickly people would pick up. So I think one thing I didn't see was being at WPP stream 3 years ago, and people asking questions about AI that showed that everyone now cares and that everyone's technical competence has gone up, and people really try really hard to understand what these technologies are doing. And I think that is so cool because it means that the work that we're doing is moving from the world of the technician into the everyday world, whether it be communications, ads, banking, what have you. We're building a new economic platform. That part I didn't see. I think it's really hard to see that transition coming. But that's also something I think I'm really proud of, that I think we're giving rise to a new economy similar in a way to the internet or similar in a way to mobile. And I'm actually quite bullish and quite positive about how we will rework the economy, but we'll see lots of new opportunities arising. I've gone on for a while, but that's
fascinating.
Amazing. And the future of work as it relates to this technology is super.
I'm sure who here has thought about the future of work? Okay, good. That's right. Me too, by the way. Look, it's the coders that are going to be put out of business first, right? We all see that coming.
Nick, from your perspective, what's been like the biggest creative breakthrough you've had, and what's that sort of intersection of human imagination and creative breakthrough that you've been able to realize in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say as a agency partner, I have over time become less and less creative and have just become like a dollars and cents person that does think about the bottom line and hiring and projects and all that good stuff. So when the generative tools kind of came on the market and we started playing around with some of the earliest, kind of short film, ideas, there was a film we did called Critters where we actually used DALL-E, which was text to image. It was pre any of the video generative models that are available, and, built this thing. I just kind of started feeling, in general, my childlike creativity creeping back and being able to like be on the box, doing things and exploring ideas and building out things that have been locked away for a long time, just like in a vault. And since then, I feel more creative than ever, which is kind of funny. My dad was actually, a famous artist, and he tried to teach me how to paint, and I cannot paint at all. But I've always thought about stories and thought in motion. And so the video generative tools like VO or Veo, that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Those actually allow me to think about things and explore my own creativity, even though maybe I can't draw, right? And so it's been a very exciting time to be a creative and embrace what we have going on with the tech.
Doug, was there a specific inflection point that led to this shift where everyday people are now being empowered by these tools? Is there like a technical inflection point that you were hitting?
Yeah, there's definitely. How many people have heard of Transformer? That's so great. You see, this is what I love. If I were to name some random, how many of you have heard of a support vector machine? Okay, all right, that's unfair. You guys know about everything here. I was trying to come up with one that you didn't know. So Transformer happened in our group in Google. I was in Google Brain at the time, and we merged with DeepMind. And this was the model in 2016 that basically was built for translation. So the original task of the model was to translate from spoken language to spoken language. Turns out that if I could leave you with one analogy, that really a lot of what's going on with modern AI is about translation. But it's translation from domain to domain. So if I were to show you some VO3, I did it again, VO3 videos, in some very real way, we're taking a user intent. Actually, I'll walk you through this. We're taking a user intent. Give me a picture of a beautiful woman walking on the beach, and the beach is covered with pink flamingos. The model that we use is basically trained to take that, turn it into a bunch of tokens, and then learn how to map that onto another bunch of tokens, meaning just numbers, that generate video. And so it's really translation. It's that the landing domain is not German or French. It's a language that we've learned with statistics to generate pixels. The same thing is true for AI-generated voice. It's true for AI-generated robot control. And so it turns out that a model that's really good at translation ends up being very, very general purpose. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. And it's that model that really gave us the building blocks that we needed to be able to kind of lift the data into a world where we can move it around. And the follow-on, I don't think we saw for 2 or 3 years until, I think probably Imagine 1 was my first time seeing that this could really work for images. But that was the moment. The moment was 2016. And nice historical fact, that was a paper at a premier machine learning conference called NeurIPS. And it was not anything but a poster. It wasn't even given its 5-minute spotlight on stage. No one knew it was important. And now it's by far the most important piece of machine learning and AI work that's been done in the last 50 years. And it's by the way, it's the T in ChatGPT as well. So it's moved everywhere.
Yeah, so interesting. Nick, from your perspective, there's a lot of artificial constraints that exist that essentially, determine what kind of content we can make as creators, right? Whether that's a budget, whether that's certain levels of complexity in terms of what can actually be made. Generative AI, kind of removes a lot of those barriers. Can you talk a little bit about the sort of like impossible shot that you were able to capture and how that has affected your work?
Yeah, we actually showed something to a client the other week, and they liked it a lot. But one of the things that he said to me, which stuck with me, is, that shot, and that shot, I actually don't know how you would have done in a traditional sense. Like, I do not know how you would have filmed that.
What was the shot?
It was, it's heavily NDA'd, but
Okay.
it was these very intricate camera movement and almost like impossible physics of a way to approach a scene, which to me as a visual storyteller was a huge unlock in a sense that, like, okay, we're not just trying to replace what we do, we're trying to think about things in new ways and unlock, visual storytelling in a new way. So that was kind of a huge win in my mind of how to appropriately use the tools. I will say it's not easy, and there are some shots that are kind of impossible to get in some ways. Some of the simplest things are the toughest to get right and like really direct in a sense. So I will say it has unlocked imagination and it's allowed us to explore all sorts of things, but there's still a ways to go, right? And so we're finding these hybrid ways of approaching scenes where we're still, either shooting reference plates or we're doing a lot in post VFX when we get a shot like kind of as close as possible. So it's been an interesting and exciting time, and we are exploring new shots and new ideas, but also there's still the regular limitations of, just obviously working with some of the generative models.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, that just because something is no longer impossible doesn't mean that it's particularly easy to, imagine what that could be or to make that a reality. Doug, from your perspective, like you see, of course, so much of the great output across the tools that you're building, what's been something from a creative perspective that you've been impressed by?
Yeah, great question. So the thing that's turned me on the most, my background is on the audio side of this, is seeing VO3's ability to bring in voice and bring in sound. And I think it was something that the folks that think a lot about image generation and video generation missed in terms of magnitude. And I know this because internally people are like, oh, now that people have VO3, they're out there filing. We have a tool called Flow, which I hope you try, that allows you to try these models. And we have our series of VO2 models, which are silent, and our VO3 models, which make sound, both voice and environmental sounds and singing. Like, people are filing these bugs. They're like, this is broken. It doesn't make sound. What's wrong with this? And it's like, it says really clearly. And like, no one wants to use these tools that are silent movies anymore. And it's really just that. It's that we've moved from the silent era in AI and video, just like we did, with talkies in, I guess, the 1930s, early 40s, 1930s. And so just the whole idea of the fusion of sound and okay, so my favorite, and you can look these up on your own. Here's my homework if you haven't done this. You can find it on YouTube Shorts or on Twitter. Videos of cutting fruit made of strange materials like glass, but getting the sound of it too. Do you want to hear one? Do you want to see one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do this. This is why I brought my laptop without any particular. Let's see.
A little show and tell.
Yeah, exactly. It's the most fun part. Let's see, VO3. Okay, here we go. You can bring up the. Are you seeing the screen? Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm not seeing it here. Okay, and I'm sure the sound is here. Let's see if I can make this thing get bigger. So you can see a lot, this goes, lots of ASMR, we'll all be taking a nap soon, those calming sounds. So those are environmental. Let me show you, while I'm standing, let me just show you one other thing.
It's amazing how something so simple is yet so visceral, right? And like that audio experience is really emotive at the same time.
Utterly true. I'm trying to find, okay, I'm just gonna show you a very simple video here as well. I'm gonna shift gears, but that way I'm not distracting with the videos. Let's do one more and then we can be done with the video. So that was like this sort of ASMR sound. We've also, let's see. I'm not sure if this one's a sound one or not. This one's not, this one's no sound, but I wanna point out that like, the other thing that blows my mind is our ability to offer input assets. On the left-hand column, you're seeing a beautiful woman in a blue gown. You're seeing a can of a soda that's called Thirst Burst. And you're seeing some random, probably AI-generated, like hallway in a school. And it turns out when we provide these to a particular version of VO3, VO3 will use them directly, which means we don't hallucinate. We don't like have misspellings. We don't regenerate the font. We don't regenerate the icon, which of course are the logo, which is utterly 100% critical. And so even though this is in its infancy, we're moving into a world where we can. Oh, you can hear walking. This one's just walking. Do it again for you. So, if that was loud. Did I do that? Yes, I did. Must be some music in here. Lots and lots of slides to show. So now we're starting to play around in the world of controllability, where you can bring your own assets, your own logos, your own people. In the film industry, hearing a lot of talk about digital twins. This idea that you might want to be able to license your likeness or license your likeness as an actor in a character, and then be able to use that in downstream usage. The folks we've talked to, this is one of the AI ideas that seems to be gaining traction in Hollywood. I think for a very obvious reason. It's being true to the actor. The actor is licensing his or her materials. It's being true to the screenwriter. It's being true to the people that made the film. It's not saying we're going to like scrape it on the internet and make it. It's like, no, this is part of your IP, and you can take this and we can build AI downstream personalized assets from that, whether it be a short film, whether it be like a TikTok or a YouTube short. And I think that's, in general, like, that's the directionality I'm supportive of, which is like extending the work that we're doing, and frankly, like finding new ways to monetize that work for everyone. I'll stop, but I've gone on for a while. But before I did computer science, I was an English lit major and a musician, and the pinnacle of my career was being playing in coffee houses in Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you're interested, it's kind of Johnny Cash meets The Clash, you know, on acoustic guitar. And like, I got bagels, but like I couldn't eat. And you know, I was going to be a writer, and I ended up going and becoming a database programmer because I needed to have a job. And so like, you know, I still have a few songs up on SoundCloud, and those songs are mine, man. I don't want them to be scraped by anybody else, right? And there's 5 of them, and they're not selling for anything. But the point is, like, even though I'm in this field and we're doing all of this stuff with generative, like, I have a very deep respect for the rights of the people that are making this work. And so I'm hopeful that we can build out directions where we kind of shape the economy around this, but we keep the frankly money flowing back where it needs to flow, and we build out new platforms that make sense. And I don't think it's going to be easy. Can't do it alone, but I think I think there are ways to think this through, and things like digital twins and things like being able to license certain layers of your work in downstream AI outputs is cool.
Amen to that. I mean,
rambled
I think,
a little bit, but let's applaud for that. Even though I said it.
No, amen to that. I mean, creators having more opportunities to monetize is only going to help propel this industry so much further, so much faster. And we're going to talk a little bit about time being a commodity and how generative AI kind of unlocks that in just a minute. But actually, while we're in the show and tell, Can we also play Nick's video as well to kind of give a little bit more context to the audience around the work that his team is doing?
Native Foreign is a creative studio and agency powered by AI that puts human storytelling at the forefront of everything we do. From partnering with the biggest brands in the world to startups and everything in between, we are experts in authentic yet elevated storytelling. As pioneers in the AI space, we created the first ever brand film generated with AI that went ultra viral, reaching over 1.5 billion people. We also created one of the first animated AI shorts, Critters, which will become one of the first AI native IPs to become a feature film. We believe that these tools are ushering in a new age of creative, where we'll see a renaissance of independent storytelling that we are on the cutting edge of. We've embodied a create by any means necessary mindset for years, and now we've developed a slate of originals. We are WBNC certified, women-owned, packed with Emmy, Oscar, and Grammy grade creatives, and excited to show you what's next. This is Native Foreign.
Bravo.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, having that traditional background, I think, with just embracing these tools has been a huge unlock for us in terms of just being able to explore new ideas and get into originals in a substantive way, because we've been wanting to tell original stories, but it's very prohibitive on many fronts, and so now we're actually finally able to dip our feet into that and tell some original stories other than just the brand work, which of course we love, but it's exciting.
And can you talk a little bit about how this technology allows you to, a lot of the industry talks about the efficiency and the time that we all find.
Sure.
How do you rechannel that energy back into the creative process?
Well, I think like with the Critters film, for example, it's a kids animated short, which, can take 3 to 5 years to make. Our aim is to make it for, closer to a year. We're not being too hard on ourselves, because we've got, we're writing the script now, and we've got the writers of Paddington and Peru actually writing the script. And so the idea is once the script's done, we're going to see how quickly we can make it, and, also smaller teams. So I think Cord Jefferson actually said this at the Oscars a couple years back, which was, why are we greenlighting these single $200 million films? Let's greenlight $54 million films instead. And let's let more people tell more stories, have more swings, more chances at bat, basically. And I think that's the exciting thing about, where we're at now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for marketers as well, is like oftentimes when you're creating branded content, branded entertainment, some of the most compelling creative content, you have to like really gear that to a pretty like mass market audience, right? Because of like how cost prohibitive it can be to like really personalize it or really tap into niche communities. But now as you bring the cost of these tools down, it's not that we're gonna just be doing the same thing at a much cheaper cost. It's now we can do so much more, right? And we can actually tap into really niche communities in really compelling ways with really entertaining content, at a premium scale. All right, so looking ahead, and like this question, I always think like the idea of like 5 years from now, I can't even comprehend, because like when Google Veo 3 dropped, like, what was it, a month ago? It's like, and Google Veo 2 was what, like 6 months before that?
Yeah, I think November.
I mean, the speed at which we're moving is just so wild. So, what does 5 years look like from now?
Let's ask this guy. He knows more than I do.
No pressure. So here's what I think. I think that I have some ideas about this, sort of form my thoughts. All right, so there's a big fork in the road for new technologies that I see historically. I've been looking at the history of this quite a bit. And either a technology kind of forks off and dies, or it gets absorbed, right? It becomes the next thing. And so of the many musical instruments that you might think of, the electric guitar, it didn't fork off and die. It sort of got absorbed, and it became this like major actor in rock and roll music for like 50 years or more. And
is there an example of something that forked off and died?
HD DVD.
NFTs,
okay.
Nanotechnology. That was fast. Boom. Yeah. But even smaller examples, one of my favorite examples of this is 2 pieces of technology were developed in the 70s originally. One of them was the drum machine, different versions of it, and one of them was the arpeggiator of the sort that, of my age, your grandma had those organs, the 2-tiered organs in the house that had like, You could pick samba. You could pick, waltz.
Oh, yeah.
And then it would arpeggiate the chords for you, like boom, dum, 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 dum. You're only pushing one note, right? And those all died off. They weren't controllable. And the story of the 808, which is the drum machine that made hip hop in the Bronx. And one of the things about that was it was programmable. So you could tap in their beats, and that gave you this expressive lift. That technology lived. But when those technologies live, they end up being absorbed into the economy. And the companies that made them, in some sense, lose control of them. Always, always, always. And what we saw with the internet was that the people that made the internet was DARPA, the US government, and then a bunch of universities. And then there was a point, I remember the crisis that we might do business on the internet. Oh my God. And we minted these things like .com. And everybody was freaked out about that did this in the first place for research. It worked out fine. It gave rise to a whole new economy. Then you have mobile. The first movers in mobile were Qualcomm, BlackBerry, RIM. Remember BlackBerries? They were going to take over the world, et cetera. And then, of course, Apple, and to some extent, Google with Pixel. But eventually, it became its own economy. So there are other players there, like Netflix and Amazon, et cetera. What I believe will happen in 5 years, I think the evidence is already there that AI is giving rise already to a new economic platform upon which to do business. Because what we're seeing is that in healthcare, we're seeing like medical researchers and hospitals and doctors beginning to take control of what story is being told in healthcare around AI. We're seeing the film industry reaching out very strongly. The music industry is taking control over what's happening. And I think it's incredibly healthy. So I think those of us, people like me, I'll call myself a pioneer, pioneers in AI, we will still get credit for that initial work. But I really do believe that what we'll see is a much larger economic movement that will involve all of the large economic sectors of the economy. That's what I see in 5 years.
Amazing. And Nick, anything from a creative note?
I'm not going to know what he said. That was great. That was great.
Awesome. Well, thank you all, and thank you guys for an amazing panel.
Thanks for coming, everybody.